Warning. This content can be disturbing to some audiences. Viewer discretion advised. I was a lot happier before I knew that tonsil stones were a thing. What is a disturbing fact you wish you could unlearn? There's a type of crayfish that farms sea stars by cutting all their water legs off and eating its arms all the way to the center but leaving the center intact. It then feeds the sea star with kelp to keep it alive, so it regenerates, and then repeats the process. When the Challenger exploded in 1986, the astronauts didn't die from the explosion. Nor did they die from depressurization as NASA has initially claimed. There is some evidence they turned on their personal oxygen supply. They died from impact when they hit the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. They were in free fall for 2.5 minutes. I learned on Reddit that a woodpecker will tap enough to break into a baby bird's skull and slurp up their brains. In most cases when a parasite gets into the brain, they don't remove it. They just kill it with some sort of acid or something with a similar effect, then just let the body calcify it. It's weird cause you'd think that the parasite could still do something. Edit. They don't kill it with acid. The Chiquita Banana Company colluded with the CIA to overthrow the democratically elected government of Guatemala, leading to a civil war that lasted 46 years and directly contributed to the ongoing migrant crisis at the border. They called it Operation PB Success. My biology teacher had a Q&A session before Christmas and one student asked if it's possible to be allergic to your own blood. Unfortunately, you can. Just imagine your own immune system destroying your red blood cells, constant hemorrhaging, constantly feeling cold and out of breath. When we got back from winter break we saw a new face in class, a former student of my bio teacher who just so happened to have this disease, and we spent the whole class asking questions. I feel so bad for the guy, but thankfully the medicine available to suppress the immune system has made his life bearable. My college roommate had a similar condition, you can look up, called DVT or Behçet's disease. There is medicine to suppress his white blood cells, but yeah, it's still incurable and he's going to have to take them for life. Cool part, when this dude catches a cold or something, because he's always suppressing his immune system, he has to stop taking his medicines and his ultra WBCs fix him back up. D. Jeffrey Dahmer drilled a hole into some victims' skulls and tried pouring different toxic liquids into the hole. He was trying to make a sex slave that could eat and drink but could in no way fight back or escape. The worst fact is that victims might survive the first hole with all brain function intact and live long enough to be fully aware they were going to get a second or third hole drilled. One of the victims managed to escape, the police were called, and somehow the police turned the 14-year-old victim back over to Dahmer. EDA, thanks for the awards. Never gotten this many upvotes before. Wish it wasn't such a sad fact though. A man named Hisashi Aoshi in 1999 suffered immense radiation poisoning after a nuclear accident. In fact, he is known to have taken more radiation poisoning than anyone else in history. Because of this radiation, it messed up his chromosomes as well as his cells and mind system. He was kept alive for 83 days by scientists and doctors. During that time, by day 20, almost all the skin on his body had fallen off, leaving his entire body in constant pain. Later, the skin around his eyes as well as his eyelids also came off, so his eyes were always open even when asleep. His eyes would also something leak blood, making it look as though he was crying. His intestines were so messed up that he started to have constant diarrhea, which soon started to have large amounts of blood because his intestines were starting to decay from the inside. On day 53 his heart stopped 3 times, but scientists and doctors were able to restart it. He was basically only being kept alive by machines at this point, and the doctors started questioning if it would be more humane to let the man die, as he was in very obvious, unimaginable and indescribable levels of pain and suffering. Some doctors even said that it was torture forcing him to live like this. Due to the radiation, almost all the muscles in his body had been destroyed. The only one that wasn't was his heart, which was still being kept alive from the various machines. The worst part of all of this is that Fauci was completely conscious throughout all of it, and while he couldn't talk due to tubes being in his throat to help him breathe as the radiation also destroyed his lungs, he was in obvious pain every time someone touched him, or even while he was just lying on his bed. And while around the 2-month mark, it's unknown if he even felt pain as he stopped reacting to being touched, as well as stopped thriving in agony 24/7. His pupils still shrank when light was shown into them, suggesting brain activity. Hopefully he did stop feeling pain by then. If not, then that makes it even worse. His body around day 80 was quite obviously to anyone at this point unsalvageable, and mold was starting to develop on his skinless body. He was even described as a corpse with a beating heart, so they decided that trying to save him wasn't worth it and pulled his plug. When they did, they studied his body and found out that his organs had all started to decay when he was still alive. All of this and more happened to one man who should have been killed out of mercy for his sake. Fauci has probably had the most painful, torturous, slowly agony death of all time. Since koalas eat so much eucalyptus and that stuff produces extremely flammable gases, koalas explode when they get into wildfire. TLDR, don't retire in Vegas. In some states in the USA, particularly Nevada, your doctor can basically sell you to a company. If you're a senior with an untrustworthy doctor, they can throw memory loss, hysteria, confusion, etc. on a piece of paper and hand it over to a company. This company can claim guardianship over you without you ever meeting or hearing of them. And they can take you out of your house, sell your house and all of your belongings, put you in a nursing home, and have full control over your finances. They can force you to take medication every day for the rest of your life that make you confused and unable to think clearly, until you die. They can bar your family from visiting you as well. And it's all 100% legal. Before you even find out it's happened to you, there's already been a court hearing where the judge is persuaded into signing your life into some stranger's hands based on your doctor's false claims. Not that I want to unlearn it though. I think more people should know about it. Most schizophrenics kill themselves during the lucid period. I leaned that fact, but I regret the day I understood it. I'm a psychiatrist, MD, and during medical school, I had the privilege of working at an Embry building as part of my psych rotation. My very last day, I stayed late to check up on a man with schizophrenia who was generally pretty disorganized. When I was questioning him, he seemed more lucid, and he mentioned something about studying literature. Having recently been half an English major in college, I engaged him, and he started rhapsodizing about Faulkner, Tennessee Williams, really insightful comments. Then he moved on to music, jazz especially. I spent an hour after my shift with that man, just listening. I passed in attending when I went to write my notes, told him what had happened, awe and joy in my voice. He informed me that the man was a former professor, had 2 PhDs. He said that many people with severe mental illness are living in 1-2 rooms of a mansion, and once in a while, the lights come on in the rest of the house, and you can see what it once was. And so, can they. There's such a thing as 4th, 5th, and 6th degree burns. 4th degree means all the layers of skin at the burn site are gone. 5th degree means the muscle under the skin is damaged. 6th degree is literally down to the bone. Yeah. I was a lot happier thinking 3rd degree was the worst. Apparently, Japan bombed China with fleas infected with bubonic plague during World War II. Big rain, I think. Yeah, it was worse than that. A powerful report in yesterday's Times recounted the wartime exploits of the Imperial Army's Unit 731 based in China, Japan's principal practitioner of human experiments. Plague-infected fleas were airdropped over Chinese cities, causing epidemics. Cholera and typhoid cultures were poured into wells. Prisoners were dissected alive without anesthetics. Others were subjected to pressure changes that made their bodies literally explode. At least 200,000 Chinese are estimated to have died in these experiments. Oh, and this part too. But before Americans get self-righteous about Japan's handling of an ugly history, they should ponder Washington's own role in downplaying Unit 731 and other Japanese war crimes. The United States wanted the Japanese findings about the effects of biological agents on soldiers and civilians available for its own potential military use. It not only exempted the leaders of Unit 731 from trial but put them on the American payroll. New York Times, The Crimes of Unit 731, March 18, 1995. I was a lot happier before I knew that tonsil stones were a thing. There is a phenomenon known as stone baby where a fetus dies and doesn't get absorbed by the body, so it calcifies inside the mother's abdomen. People have been known to carry around these mummified fetuses for 40 years, totally unaware. When my mother was pregnant with me, they did an ultrasound and found she was having twins. When they did another ultrasound a few weeks later, they discovered that I had resorbed the other fetus. Do I regret this? No. I believe his tissues have made me stronger. I now have the strength of a grown man and a little baby. Edit, tie for the awards lol. Also, LOL at the people getting whooshed. A Queen of Scotland, if my memory's good, was sentenced to death by beheading. Bear in mind that a beheading was always seen as a quick death. One chop and that's done. She got up to the chopping block and made her prayers. The executioner took 3 swings to properly behead her. I recall reading how she screamed in terror and pain before the second hit cut her voice. I forgot the details of much, but executioners were not flawless in their handling of sentences. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect this to blow up overnight. Thank you for the awards, kind strangers. Hence Dr. Guillotine inventing the guillotine for humanitarian reasons. He was against executions but understood that they would happen regardless, so he invented a method that made it as quick and painless as possible. Funnily, he didn't invent it, only improved it in the late 1700s. The Halifax gibbet was installed in the 1500s, in Halifax, Yorkshire, and may be the first mechanical beheader. They don't know the exact date of its installation, but it's likely it was operational when Mary was executed. There is a story that Halifax had a law in place. If you were sentenced to death, you would not be fastened into the gibbet. If you could remove your head from the path in the time between the blade being released and it hits you, you would just be banished instead, with the death penalty being reinstated if you returned. Only one man managed to dodge the blade in time. He returned to Halifax several decades later thinking everyone would have forgotten about him by now. They hadn't. He was put back in the gibbet and was not so fast the second time. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more quality content. Leave a comment if you have any suggestions. Goodbye.